Good morning. Today is Monday, May 15th, 2023. So, with this Shabbos, we begin the fourth book of the Torah, the book of BaMidbor. This week's Torah portion is the Parsha of BaMidbor. And I'd like to share something that will provide an insight, kind of an overview of this entire book of the Torah, sort of set the mood for the entire book, and it will build on a theme that we discussed a few weeks ago, and it comes from Rabbi Jonathan Sacks. If you look at the book of BaMidbor, the fourth book of the Torah, and you compare it to the book of Shemos, Exodus, the second book of the Torah, there are many parallels between the two. Both books are about a journey. In both books, we have the Jewish people complaining about food, about water. In both of the books, there is a major sin. In Shemos, the sin of the golden calf. In BaMidbor, the sin of the Meraglim, the spies. In both cases, God threatens to destroy the entire Jewish people. Moshe intercedes to beseech compassion and forgiveness, and ultimately Moshe persuades God to forgive the Jewish people. And so, if you look at the book of BaMidbor, it would be easy to think, well, we just had this already. It's kind of similar. It parallels the book of Shemos. But there is one deep significance that drives a wedge between the two in a very, very significant manner, and that is, the book of Shemos is about a journey, but it's about a journey from Egypt. We left Egypt. The book of BaMidbor is a book of a journey to. It's a book when the Jewish people are already in the desert, and now they're traveling towards Israel. In the book of Shemos, the Jewish people are looking back to make sure they are safe. In the book of BaMidbor, the Jewish people are looking forward toward their destination, towards developing, creating a Torah society in Israel. Now, if you had never read the Torah before, and you just knew this about it, you might say to yourself, well, the book of BaMidbor should be very relaxed, should be very upbeat. The Jewish people have nothing to fear anymore. They are finally free of Paro. They finally crossed the Red Sea. They were triumphant over Amalek. And now all the danger is past. All the difficulty is past. And now they're just looking forward. They're looking forward to the promised land. It should be easy. It should be calm. It should be optimistic. In fact, the opposite is true. Because the mood in the book of BaMidbor that we're starting this Shabbos is much darker. The mood is darker, certainly compared to the book of Shemos. In this book, we will have a serious rebellion against Moshe, led by Korach. We will see several different instances where Moshe's leadership is, I'm not sure the right word to use. Rabbi Sacks uses the word hesitant. I'm afraid to say the word stumbles a bit. We see Moshe finally giving in to anger and despair, something that we have not seen before. And the Torah is telling us something that is counterintuitive. We would not have guessed this on our own. but it has great, great significance, and it is relevant in the lives of every single one of us. both as individuals and as a community. The journey from is always easier than the journey to. It's very obvious in politics. There's a revolution to depose an evil regime, and everyone is involved, and everyone is excited, and there's a sense of optimism and idealism, and the old bad regime is overturned. But now that group of revolutionaries has a very, very different task. Now they have to create a new structure in its place. The strengths that were needed to overturn the old structure are not the same strengths as what is needed to create a new structure. And very often this happens throughout history. It happens in our time, where the revolution is successful, but then it falls apart because the job of building something new is much different, much more difficult. It's true in the life of nations, it's true for communities, it's true for individuals. And for individuals, there is a biological reason for it, because we are genetically prepared to be able to sense danger and to respond to danger. And when our lives are in danger, when our way of life is in danger, we have superhuman strength. We have strengths that we may not ever have realized we had. And that's when a small, less well-armed band of revolutionaries can overcome a much greater entrenched force. We see it in our own history. We see it all around us, over and over. Because when my life is in danger, I have this instinct to have all of the abilities at my disposal, many of which I don't realize I have, be able to be brought to bear to save myself, to save ourselves. But running to, journeying to, fleeing to, that's a very different thing. That means making home in a place where, either literally or figuratively, we have not been before. It means putting ourselves into a new situation, creating something that has not existed before, or going somewhere where we have not been before. And in order to do that, we're going to have to learn new skills, not the skills we relied on up until now, but new skills. We're going to have to acquire new strengths to be able to do this new task. Fleeing to, a journey to, is a journey to the unknown. We see this very, very clearly at the very beginning of our history as Jews. We're all familiar with the famous verse where God speaks to Avram and says, Lech lecha, go from your homeland, El haaretz asher ereka, to the land that I will show you, and I will make for you a great nation. But we commented on this a few weeks ago. There's a verse, a pasuk just before that. Now it's actually the last pasuk in the Parsha before. The Torah tells us, incredibly, that Terach had already taken Avraham and his family from their home. They had already left home. They left Ur-Kasdim, which was where Avraham was from. They came to Haran, which is halfway on the journey, and then they stayed there. Terach was able to flee from. Terach was able to see that where they were under Nimrod, under paganism, was unsustainable, and they had to flee, they had to leave. But that's as far as he got. It was left to Avraham to be able to formulate on God's command the journey to. And that's what's really remarkable about Avraham. What is remarkable about Avraham, the revolution that Avraham set in place, is not that he left. He left because his father left. The revolution, the genius, the momentous nature of what Avraham did is that he could go forward, to reach, to create something new. To be a Jew, says Rabbi Sacks, is to know that life is a journey. And at the very beginning, it is necessary to know where we are traveling to. We discussed this in connection with Pesach and Shavuos, the mitzvah of counting the Omer. Leaving is easy. We need help with arriving, because arriving is hard. I saw a quote, but I don't know the author. You'll never discover new oceans unless you have the courage to lose sight of the shore. If you can't bring yourself to leave the shore, you'll always stay in the place where you always are. This is the message of Sefer BaMidbor, the book of BaMidbor. It traces this problem. It teaches this lesson. In the book of BaMidbor, the Jewish people make a series of mistakes. They focus too much on the present. What are we eating? What are we drinking? And too little on the future. They had too much to fear. They had too little faith. And they kept looking back. They kept looking back at what they were missing. Oh, the food we had in Egypt and how good it was in Egypt, which of course we understand is nonsensical. But that's the problem. And because of that, almost the entire generation of Jews who left Egypt did not arrive in Israel. They suffered the same fate of Avraham's father. They could leave, but they could not arrive. And that's why the book of BaMidbor is so dark. And we need to try to learn from this. And the perfect time is coming next week, the holiday of Shavuos. Shavuos is the holiday where we have the opportunity to relive, to reenact that we are standing at Sinai and receiving the Torah at Mount Sinai. That was the first stop on the journey to. And it, for us, should be the first stop on the journey to. And it should remind us that we have to ask the question, where do we want to go? Who do we want to be? And that applied to the Jewish people once they got to Mount Sinai. And it applies to every single one of us as we celebrate the holiday. Because we are reliving it. We are reenacting it. I've made it this far. Where am I heading now? Where do I want to go to? Shavuos is the time to consider answering that question. Don't let your life just happen to you. Aim at something specific, something momentous, something that you can spend the rest of your life journeying towards. My friends, I wish you a great day, and I look forward to seeing you soon in person.